Okay, good evening. Thank you everybody for coming. Welcome to Shiur number 3 on Hakones. Thank you very much to Rabbi Greenwald and to the whole Greenwald family for hosting. And we haven't dedicated any of the previous Shiurim, but tonight Chav Gimel Mar Cheshvan is the yahrzeit of my wife's grandfather. His name is Rabbi Aaron Zaykan. He owns Zaykan's Toys. Many people know him. The family's gathering now for a Mishnayos, which I would have been there, but I scheduled this. I didn't realize that that's happening. So my Gemara learning here and the Mishnahs that we'll quote will all be Lili Nishmasei, Mirtz Hashem. I'm sure it's a great schos. And we're holding Shiur number 3. We're holding in Hakones, about one blot in, Daf Nun Vav Amud Aleph, like 4 lines before the white lines. The 2 dots that say Nifritz Abalayla, Aisha Pertzua Listim. So it's a new sugya. We only have to recap this din in the Mishnah, and it's everything we learned until here. We don't have to chazer over to jump right into today's Gemara. And I would love to do like a whole block today if possible, so we could get really, a sach weiter. So you could be where your sons are holding, or even ahead of where your sons are holding. Yemir Hashem. So in the Mishnah, if you remember, we learned a whole bunch of cases of your animal breaking out, or people breaking. Listim took out your animal. And in one case, are you chayiv? If you were a pesheya, you're going to be chayiv. If it was an oinus, you're not going to be chayiv. And all those cases that went from the Mishnah, there were 11 cases. So the case that we're about to quote here in the Mishnah was 2 cases together that it said as follows. Nifritz of alayla, if somehow your wall just broke down in the middle of the night. Your wall broke down in the middle of the night and the animal escaped. And the animal went and caused damage. Or thieves came and they broke down your wall. And they just knocked your wall down, and maybe they stole some of your tools or whatever it is, but because the wall came down, it wasn't your fault. Your animal ran away and caused damage. So in those cases, you're going to be patur. When we learned the Mishnah, you may recall we mentioned the Taisva said it's dafkin for tzabalayla that you're going to be patur, because by night, if your wall fell down, you're not responsible. You don't know that your wall fell to go fix it. But in the middle of the day, if your wall fell and you know you have animals there, you have to run right away and chain them up or fix the wall immediately. But in the middle of the night, what were you meant to do? So you're considered an einus, and you're going to be patur. So that is the Mishnah. So on this Mishnah, we have a memra, we have a saying from an Amayra. Chashav Amayra. Zakti Gemara, Amar Rabba, Rabba says, V'hu shechatra. Those are the 2 words that Rabba said. Rabba said, V'hu shechatra. In other words, Rabba's qualifying. In other words, he's limiting the din. He's saying that this din in the Mishnah, that if nifritz of alayla, if the wall broke down and your animal escaped and caused damage, you're going to be patur, is specifically if a real extreme kind of einus happens, something that's considered very unusual. The animal started digging a tunnel, or started digging a hole underground, was digging under the wall, and because of that, the wall got loose and the wall collapsed. But if that's it, that's the only time that you're going to be patur. V'hu shechatra means that you're only going to be patur in the case of chatra. So now the Gemara is going to have a hard time understanding that. What's going to be when it was leichata? What if somehow the wall just fell down, the wall broke? It's a regular einus. Why only in the case of v'hu shechata? That's what the Gemara is going to want to understand right now. Frankly,
couldn't be any other weird circumstance.
Yeah, that's what Rabbi said. Dafka in a case where the animal went and dug, which is considered an extreme einus. So it seems to imply that if somehow it was a different type of nifritza, like you're saying any other case, maybe the wall just suddenly collapsed or something, you're going to be chayiv. That's what it seems to imply. But the question is why? In those cases, it's also an einus. Like if you go with the logic that if you're einus, it's patur, those cases are einus as well. So what's going on? So that's what the Gemara is going to ask right now. Frak Gemara, avolai chatra. If it's not a case where the animal did chatra, what's the din? Chayiv, you're going to be chayiv. Heichidami, which case are we talking about? So if we're talking about that it was a healthy wall and it was a normal wall which was not meant to fall, and kiloi chatra, even a case of that it wasn't chatra, but some other interesting case where the wall somehow came down. Amai chayiv? Why should you be chayiv? My havalei lemebed. What should have you done? In other words, you are an einus. You should have been patur in that case as well. So if you want to say, so the Gemara is asking, why only by chatra? If it was loi chatra, and we're talking about that it was a regular healthy wall, and somehow it was nifritza, whatever the circumstances were. So what? But you're also considered an einus. In that case, why would you be chayiv? You should be patur too. So why would Rabbi say daf v'hu shechatra? There should be other cases that in this case you should be patur even if it was like chatra. So it can be that we're talking about a healthy wall. Elamai, the Gemara is going to suggest. Ella, rather, you might want to tell me that we're talking about a kaisar ru'ah. We were talking about that it was a very, very shaky wall. So really, it wasn't the right thing to leave animals over here with this shaky wall. But then what ended up happening was, it's not that this shaky wall fell, and it's not that this shaky wall, the animals walked into it. The animals then did this unusual event that they started digging, which is still an einus. Animals don't usually do that. And because they dug under the wall ended up falling. So Ella, rather, you're going to want to say we're talking about a kaisar ru'ah. So ki chatra. Now we have to understand, even in the case of kaisar ru'ah, when you dug, amai pater, why are you going to be pater? Why in that case are you going to be pater? It's a case of tchilasi b'shia v'seifa b'aynos. So tchilasi b'shia v'seifa b'aynos. Let's pause here for a second. Tchilasi b'shia v'seifa b'aynos means you have a case where you did a pshia initially, and then what ended up happening was an aynos ended up happening. So to try to give like a more modern day example, I hope this example is good. The example I like to give the kids in yeshiva is if you're meant to watch something for somebody and you leave it on top of, you put it in the middle of the street on top of a manhole, you know, one of these paddles from Con Edison, you leave it in the middle of the street. So you're a pesheya. Anybody could come, a car could drive over it, somebody could come and steal it, you're a pesheya. But what ended up happening was the manhole exploded. It's an unusual event. The manholes don't explode every single day. So you're a tchilasi b'pshia, but what ended up happening was your pshia didn't cause it to be stolen. It's maybe a little bit caused it because you put it on top of a manhole, but ended up being some odd event that this manhole exploded or that it sunk in. So there's a famous machlekes all around Shas of tchilasi b'shia v'seifa b'aynos. If you're going to be chayiv or you're going to be pater, one opinion holds you did a pshia, and this pshia even led slightly towards the aynos, so you're going to be chayiv. Another opinion says no. Even though you did tchilasi b'shia, what ended up happening was a pure aynos. So your aynos, you're going to be pater. So it's going to be machlekes of tchilasi b'shia v'seifa b'aynos if you're chayiv or pater. So in this case, where you left your animals with a kaisar ru'ah, and then your animals went and dug, which is a case of aynos, they went and dug, and now the wall collapsed. So if you're going to want to say that that's what our Mishnah is talking about, and that you're pater in that case, so then the Gemara is going to explain that that works well with our Mishnah said that you're pater, right? So that will work well with the opinion of tchilasi b'shia v'seifa b'aynos is pater. That's going to work very well. That our Mishnah is talking about it was a kaisar ru'ah of tchilasi b'shia, and then Rabbi comes to say it's tafkevu shechatra, that the animal went and did an aynos, which now caused that this wall shall fall. So it's tchilasi b'shia v'seifa b'aynos. So and the Mishnah paskin pater, that will work well with the opinion of tchilasi b'shia v'seifa b'aynos pater. Fine, but according to the opinion that tchilasi b'shia v'seifa b'aynos, how are you going to be able to explain what Rabbi is saying that v'hu shechatra dafka? So Gemara says, let's rewind. Ella, rather, but Kaitsobari we said we can't be talking about. Because in that case, why would you be chayav? So Ella, what are you going to want to say? Why? What are we talking about? We're talking about dafka kaisar ru'ah. Ki chatra, amai pater, and by kaisar ru'ah, again, by kaisar ru'ah we would understand why if it fell, you're chayav. But you're only going to be pater in the case of chatra. That right? It would make sense because kaisar ru'ah, if it was regular nifritza, you're going to be chayiv because it was a kaisar ru'ah. And if the animal dug, you're going to be pater. So that would maybe make sense to say that our Mishnah is talking about a kaisar ru'ah, and that's why Rabbi said dafke v'usha chatra. Right? I want to explain what Rabbi is saying. By kaisar bari, it makes no sense that Rabbi should say dafke by chatra. I want to clarify this point. But by a kaisar ru'ah, now it could actually make sense. We're talking about a kaisar ru'ah, so any nifritza you would actually be chayiv. And dafka bechatra, you would be pater. Dafka bechatra, you would be pater. And that's why Rabbi said, dafka v'husha chatra, because our Mishnah is talking about a kaisar ru'ah. Fine. So Zakti Gemara, in that case, fine. But that's a case of tchilasi my pater. It's a regular case of tchilasi b'shia v'seifa b'aynos. So hani chilamanda amar, according to the opinion taka that also tchilasi b'shia v'seifa b'aynos pater. So very good. This is the case of our Mishnah, and everything jives very well. Everything works out. But according to the opinion that even in this case, it's because you left the animal, even though the end was aynos that the animal tried digging, you're going to be chayiv anyway. How are you going to explain our Mishnah? So according to that opinion, which is, half of the Chachamim hold that, let's say, it's a famous opinion that how are they going to explain the Mishnah and that Rabbah is saying on this Mishnah, we have no way to understand Rabba's statement according to them. By kaisar bari, it certainly makes no sense. And even in this case that it's a kaisar ru'ah, according to them, you're going to be chayiv anyway. But our Mishnah said nifra tzibalaila your pater. So what case are we going to be talking about? The Rabbi says v'hushah chatra. So now the Gemara is going to answer. We're holding elamas nissen. So the Gemara is going to answer that Rabba's statement was not on this part of the Mishnah. Remember, our Mishnah had 11 cases. And when Rabba said V'husha Chatra, he actually didn't say V'husha Chatra, he said V'afilu Chatra, and he wasn't saying it on the case of Nifrit Sabalayla, he was going on a different case. And we'll see it, we'll read it inside and then we'll explain. Zakti Gemara, Ella, rather, Masnisin B'kaisel Bari. For sure, our Mishnah over there by Nifrit Sabalayla is talking about a Kaisel Bari. And for sure, you're going to be pater, even if it was not a case, an extreme case of chatra. Any case of nifritza, if it was a kaisel bari, you went to sleep at night knowing that you left your animal behind the kaisel bari, somehow a nifritza took place, even like chatra, you're going to be pater because it was aynis. When did we learn Rabba's statement about chatra? Aseifa itmar. It goes on one of the cases from Vaita in the Mishnah, from later on in the Mishnah. Seifa doesn't mean literally the last case, but it means safer compared to this case, a case that's further on in the Mishnah. It said in the Mishnah, one of the further cases, it says, if you left the animal under the boiling hot sun, or you gave the animal over to who are irresponsible to watch it. So in those cases where you left it in the hot sun, or you gave it to someone who's not a good shaymer, and then the animal went out and damaged, you're going to be chayev. Why are you going to be chayiv? Because it's your fault that the animal went out. It's your fault. You don't leave it in the sun. You don't leave it with a kid. And on that, Rabbi comes and says, Amar Rabba, Rabba's going to come and say, Vafilu chatra. Even in the case where you left it with the sun, you're going to be chayiv, even if the animal went and dug out. You might think, why? What would you think? You might think that a case where an animal dug itself out, it's aynus. Leaving it in the sun, so the animal is very, very uncomfortable. It's going to try to maybe chew up the lock, slam itself through the door, find an opening. But to dig is a very, very extreme case. So you might have thought, me leaving it in the sun, if I had a really, really good wall around them, animal dug out. It's not my fault. Who would expect the animal to dig out? Animals don't dig tunnels. It's just not a common thing. So Rabbi's here to say, no, you left it in the chama, you're going to be chayiv afilu chatra, even in the case of chatra. In other words, it's like don't tell me that you did a pshia, that you left it in the sun, but the end was aynis because it dug out. Animals don't do that. This is a direct result of your pshia. The fact that you left it in the sun, the animals become so uncomfortable, they're going to even dig themselves tunnels out. So it's one large pshia. It's not a chas of pshia. It is a pshia. It's a direct pshia, and that's what Rabbi is there to make sure you should know that. You're chayiv afilu in the extreme case of chatra. And Rabbi says, it's needless to say. It's needless to say in the case where the animal didn't dig and it somehow got itself out in a more normal way, that you're going to be chayav for leaving it in the sun. The kula pshiahi, because in that case it was a pshia, you should have not left it in the sun, so of course it's going to break out. Even in a case where it did dig itself out, and mamash made a tunnel and it went out. Mahu the tema I would have thought that this would be a case of chassid b'shia v'sefer b'aynis, and therefore maybe you're going to be pater, at least according to one opinion, or even according to the opinion that usually holds chayiv. Just remember a little lumdas here. Even according to the opinion that usually holds chayiv, when they say chassid b'shia v'sefer b'aynis chayiv, at the end of the day that aynis has to be a little bit related to the pshia. But here, if you do hinicha b'chama and it dug itself out, like this aynis has nothing to do with the pshia. The case before when we said you dug and then the wall fell, so you left it with a kaisar ruah as a pshia. Now the animal dug was aynis, and then it caused the wall to collapse. So that aynis caused the wall to collapse, but it was a kaisar ruah lechatchila. Or like the example that I gave where you put it out on the street, you did a pshia, you left it on the manhole, but ended up happening was that it exploded. But at the end of the day, it's because I left it on the manhole, so it's a little bit related. But when the way most Rishonim learn is that even when you have to gloss of sefer b'aynis, even according to the opinion that you're chayiv, you're not chayiv, it's a totally unrelated aynis, like it's a pure aynis out of nowhere, you're still going to be pater. It's only chayiv if the chassid of pshia led somewhat to this eventual aynis. So the way you can learn this Gemara is that if you might think that chatra, such an extreme aynis, there's nothing, you didn't cause this at all. I mean, even if you leave an animal b'chama, doesn't cause them to dig. If an animal dug out a tunnel, it's just something random. This animal went crazy, nothing to do with the sun. That's what you might have thought. So it would be a case of chassid b'shia b'aynis, and maybe you're going to be pater. Again, certainly according to the opinion that chassid b'shia b'aynis pater, you'll be pater in this case, and even according to the opinion chayiv, you might want to learn that in this case you would be pater. So the Rabbi is here to tell you, don't think that. Even my chatra, you're 100% responsible. And kamash malan, here's what Rabbi is here to teach us. The kula pshiahi. Even in this case, it's a pshia. Why? My time. And what's the reason? The amalei, because the nizik is going to tell to the owner of the Baal Behema. In other words, the guy whose field now got damaged because the animal escaped, he's going to tell the Baal Abayas, why did you leave it in the sun? You know, maybe yadis, you know, the kivam the shafkasa bechama, because you left it in the sun. Kol tatztika the isla, any kunts, any trick, anything that it could figure out, lemeva to do, after it will do v'nafka. They become so uncomfortable when they're left in the sun. Anything it's able to figure out to do, it's going to do, and it's going to escape, and therefore it is one big pshia. So we finished this little shtickle of Gemara. There's 2 dots now every once in a while, so it makes it easier. So brief recap: we learned in the Mishnah Nifritz of Achama, and we wanted on this. Rabbi said a statement on it, Behusha Chatra. We had a hard time understanding Rabbi's statement, Behusha Chatra, on Nifritz of Achama. Nifritz of Achama, you should always be patur if it's a pure aynus. So we said, no, Rabbi wasn't talking about Nifritz of Achama. I'm just being Makatzer now. Rabbi's talking about the Keitza, Inicha B'chama. And Inicha B'chama, he wants you to know that you're going to be Chayiv Afilu Chatra. Why? Because if you leave an animal in the sun, that it's a Kulab Shehi. Anything that you're going to do, it's going to automatically do anything to escape. Again, if you want to hear a muscle that I sometimes try to get the kids thinking, that for me, the most geschmacked thing is, a machlekes like this, of Chassid B'Shiv Sev B'Enes Chayiv. So instead of learning that it's a machlekes Amirayim, I get the kids. A lot of kids identify with one of the opinions. Some of them think like, yeah, of course you're chayiv. What do you mean? You were so irresponsible. It doesn't matter what happened later. And some kids feel like, no, like these 2 opinions, kids actually, there's some kids in each class who go one way and go the other way. So I try to give them like live examples and like have them argue it out. And then I tell them like, okay, this is beautiful. This is the machlekes. Now you're able to understand both sides of the thing. So like one of the examples I give them just for fun is that if let's say a kid opens his door in the morning, lives on Empire Boulevard, and he opens up his door in the morning, he sees an inch of snow, and he nevertheless decides to ride his bike to school, right? And then what happens is later he slips, and because of that he comes a half hour late to school. He comes to school and he says, "I'm aynus because I slipped. I would have been in time." Now, obviously, we'll be very compassionate to him in school. If he slipped on the way to school with the snow, nothing's going to happen to him. But I tell the kids, is this kid to aynus because his bike slipped? Or is he at Chilasa B'Shia V'Seifa B'Ainus? Because he should have never taken his bike. You see inch of snow, you don't ride your bike, but ended up being his Ainus. Or is it Kula Pshia? Because you took your bike with the snow, you ended up slipping. It's like, hello, obviously that's going to happen to you. If you ride your bike in the snow, it's actually your fault that you slipped. So is it an Ainus? Is it a Chilasa B'Shia V'Seifa B'Ainus? Is it a Kula Pshia? And then the kids could argue it out. Then, because we give a school example, so they want to be Makel, it's pure Ainus. But it gets them thinking. So
one morning,
yeah.
car 770.
You know a thing or two about that, yeah.
Huh?
You know a thing or two about that, yeah.
So it was an undercover policeman who hit him. He called Atzala, came and I told the kid, he was okay, more or less. I said, we're going to take you on the ambulance, we're going to check you out. He looks at his watch and he says, no, I'm late for yeshiva.
With the Ainus, he's still you don't want to miss the Koran cards. Okay, so that's good. All right. So now we're ready for the next shtickle. Next shtickle, we're holding now the 2 dots on the bottom of the page. So the following case in the Mishnah was, we said that if Listim broke down the wall, you're patur. So in that case, actually, the Baal Bayis is patur because it was the Ainus that his wall got knocked down in the middle of the night. And the Listim are also going to be patur if the animal went and escaped because they only did a grama. Like we learned the whole Gemara before. They might be chai b'dinei shemayim, but b'dinei adam, they just broke down the wall. An animal ended up escaping. It's not direct damage that they did. But then the next case in the Gemara is that it's your listim. The listim actually lifted up the animal, or they pulled the animal, like literally took the animal out, and they put it into Reshus Harabim. So then it says that listim are going to be chayiv. So the last 4 words, and then we turn the page. We learned to the Mishnah that it's you a listim. If the listim took it out, the listim are going to be chayiv. Practic Gemara, pshita. The din is obvious. The kiv on dafkua, because they took it out of the owner's reshus. Right now, it's now considered their possession. When you steal something, so obviously it's not yours. You're mechuyev to return it. But when you steal something, you assume responsibility that it shouldn't damage, and everything, all liabilities right now belong to you. So this is an obvious case. If listim took it out, it's you a listim. We say they're going to be chayiv. Obviously they're chayiv. Right now it's kaim l'bershusay l'chol mili. It belongs to them. Obviously they can't keep it, but it belongs to them. And they have to assume all responsibilities that come along with it. So why would the Mishnah have to teach us such an obvious case? We know that Mishnayos don't do that. So for the Gemara, we're not talking about a case where the listim actually lifted it out or did a mashicha, made a kinyan on it. We're not talking about such a case. Shricha, our Mishnah is talking about a case of a chiddush. The case was the kamulo ba'apa. They actually never pulled the animal. They never touched the animal, but they just stood in front of the animal and they blocked the animal. And every time the animal wanted to go somewhere, they stood in front of it and they stood in front of it. And they made the animal escape the rishus. So the chiddush of this Mishnah is that when you do that, you're still responsible for any damage that the animal will cause, because it's as if you made a mashicha. You want to call it like that, or even if you don't want to say, well, the listim will do that. If the listim do that, whether you want to say that they made a kinyan or not, that's not the point. But they're going to be responsible for the damage if they did kamulo ba'apa. Where did the Gemara come up with this creative answer that our Mishnah is talking about a case of kamulo ba'apa? Because we also had another din that seemed very obvious. It wasn't a brayso, it was from an Amayra. And over there we also asked Pshita. And over there the Gemara gives that same exact answer. That's what the Gemara is going to say right now. Kihada Amarabba, like that din that we learned from Rabbah, Amar of Masna Marav, who taught us a din in the name of Rav, that Rav said that Amayimid behemas chaveir al kamas chaveirei kayim. That if somebody takes someone's animal and he puts it down on top of the kama, on top of the grown wheat of your friend's animal, and the animal ate it up, like you literally were maimed. You took it and you put it there, you're going to be chayev. So the Gemara said, maimed, you like literally went and put it down on top of your friend's wheat. Pshita, obviously you're going to be chayev. You like this is you're practically feeding the animal your friend's kama. Of course you're going to be chayev. So over there the Gemara answered, lie. We're not talking about that he was actually maimed it. Sicha, that foul, Rab's din was needed for a case to come la ba'apa, also that you stood in front of it and you made it, you let it, and you made it go towards your friend's come up. So the same way we answered that answer on the din of Amayim which was an obvious din, and we said we're talking about that it's Kamala Bapa. Our Gemara is using that answer for our Mishnah, that our Mishnah is also using that the Kamala Bapa. So Armale Abaye Rav Yosef, Abaye tells Rav Yosef, Kisham Rislan. Over there, by the case of Maimeh, the case of Rav, you taught us that it wasn't that the Kamala Bapa, you taught us differently. You taught us that the guy was hitting the animal. So he didn't make a hagbah, he didn't make any mashicha, but he was whipping the animal and he was making the animal go. So listim nami did kishua. You could also learn in our case by the listim that we're talking about that the listim did kishua. So there's basically two available answers. The question was pshita, hitziyah listim chayavim. That's obvious. I don't need a Mishnah Hakones dafnei base to teach me hitziyah listim chayavim. That's obvious. The Mishnah, what are we talking about that? So the first answer is we're talking about the unique case of the kamala bapa. And the second answer is that we're talking about a case where the listim were hikishua, they hit it with a stick or with a whip. Both of these answers were borrowed from another din that we once learned in the name of Rab, which was an obvious din that your maimed behemoth chaveira comes chaveira. There the Gemara asked Shitam. There also there was two answers. One answer was that the Kamala Bapa, and Abaye said that he had heard from the name of Yosef that we're talking about hikisha b'makel, that you hit it with a stick. So over here we're going to say that same answer as well. So now we're going to go to explain a further. One of the next cases from our 11 cases in our Mishnah Hakones, we're holding a two dots again, and we're holding Misara Laraya, Nichnas Haraya Chulu. The Mishnah said that if you give it over to a pastach, to a raya, who's like a professional shepherd, somebody who watches animals, you gave it over to the shepherd, so you are going to the shepherd takes. You're not responsible for anything that happens anymore. You gave it to the shepherd; he's going to assume full responsibility for whatever happened. If it'll be an inus, he'll be pat, if it'll be a pshi, he'll be chayiv. He's going to have to assume the full responsibility. He takes your place if you gave it over to a raya. So over here, the Gemara is going to want to understand what we're talking about. So for the Gemara, we're going to first establish what our case is, and then we're going to try to use this Gemara to weigh into a very famous machlekes and the psak din that Rabbi taught us about the machlekes. So let's see. Zok the Gemara Amri the Bnei Yeshiva gefragt tacht of the man. When we say that when you give it to a raya, the raya takes your place. We're talking about whose place? Ile matacht of the Baal Behema. If we're talking about a simple case where there's an owner who gave his animal, there's a Baal Behema who gave his animal to a raya, and we're saying that the raya takes the place of the Baal Behema. That case, that might be a true fact that if an owner gives it to Baal Behema, that if a Baal Behema gives it to a raya, it's true, but that can't be the case in our Mishnah. Not because there's a problem with the case, just because we learned it once. It's like similar to a pshita kind of question. Something that a previous Mishnah taught us, we don't have another Mishnah just come and repeat it. So for the Gemara, if that's the case, we're talking about a Baal Behema gives it to a Raya, then Tanina Chadazimna. We already learned it one time in a Mishnah earlier on in this Masechta. It says Misarai, that if an owner gave over his animal to Shemechinam or to Shayel or to Sacher, which is a Shemer Sacher, or to Secher, to someone who rents it from him, Kulam Nichnesu Tachas Abaylam. All those type of four Shemrim, the Shemechinam, the Shemer Sacher, the Secher, and the Shayel, when they get it, they take the place of the Baalabas. So we already learned that when a Baal Behema gives it to someone else, he takes his place. So when our Mishnah says Masara L'Raya Nichnas Tachta, it can't be talking about a Baal Behema to a Raya. Again, not because it's a problem with the din, it's an obvious din. Why is it obvious? Because we learned it once already. Tanina Chadazimno. So it can't be the case. Ella, what must we say? Rather, what are we forced to learn? That our Mishnah is talking about Tachtav de Shomer. That our Mishnah is talking about not about a bas who gave it to a Raya, but we're talking about that a Shomer gave it to a Raya. Basically, there's three people involved in the story. There's a Baal Behema who gives it to a Shomer. The Shomer now goes and gives it to the Raya. And the Mishnah is teaching us that when a Shomer goes and gives it to the Raya takes the place of the Shomer. So if anything goes wrong, it's the Raya's responsibility, and the Shomer is the middleman. He's absolved, right? He's clear. He's exempt. He has no responsibilities. So we must say El Tachtav de Shomer. The Shomer Kama Ifter Legamri, and the first Shomer, which is the middleman in this case. So we have the Baal Behema, the Shomer, and the Raya. The Shomer Kama, who's the first Shomer, who's the middle guy in this case, he's going to be completely patur. Fine. That's what we must be that our Mishnah is talking about. This Mishnah right now is weighing into a very big machlekes. So I'm going to just keep that last year. Yeah, correct. It's exactly what we're about to say. So in Perek Hakones, there's a famous machlekes of two Amirayim. If Shomer Shamas L'Shomer is chayiv or Shomer Shamas L'Shomer is patur. In other words, if you give me something to watch, now I go and give it to somebody else to watch. So the first Shomer, what role does he play? So one opinion says Shomer Shamas L'Shomer patur. The Shomer Rishon is going to be patur. The second Shomer takes responsibility. If it was a pshia, it'll be chayiv. If it was aynis, it'll be patur. If it was gneva v'aveda, it will depend, right? Because gneva v'aveda, if you're Shomer Chinam, you're patur. If you're Shomer Sacher, you're chayiv. The last Shomer will get whatever proper din applies to him, and the middle guy's patur no matter what. Shomer Shamas L'Shomer is one opinion. The other opinion was that Shomer Shamas L'Shomer is chayiv, that the middle guy is chayiv, and he's not just chayiv if it ended up being a pshia or let's say gneva v'aveda. He's chayiv under any circumstances, because he should have never given it over to another Shomer. I come to you and I'm going out of town and say, please watch my car for me. I want you specifically to watch my car. And if you go and give it away, now you violated the deal. You violated your responsibility that you were supposed to watch it for me. So now anything that happens by Shomer number two, Shomer number one is going to be responsible. Shomer Shamas L'Shomer chayiv. The Gemara over there gives two different reasons why Shomer Shamas L'Shomer is chayiv. One reason was because the owner could say, Ein Ritzayni Shehei B'Ktayni B'Yad Acher. I don't want you to give it away. You gave it away. It's not what I wanted. Or he could say that I don't believe the second guy with a shvuah. Because how does it work? If you come to a Shomer and you say, where's my thing? And he says, oh, I'm so sorry, it's an einus. He's not just patur, he has to swear that it was an einus. So, and if he doesn't swear, he actually needs to pay. He's only patur through swearing. So the owner says, you want to claim it's einus and swear that it's an einus, I believe you. And once you swear, you'll have to be patur. This other guy you gave it to, I don't even trust him to swear. So he's not able to swear. If I don't trust him to swear, I'm not going to ask him to swear in Bezdin. If he can't swear, then of course he needs to pay. You can only not pay if you go ahead and swear. So those are the technicalities of why Shomer Shamas L'Shomer is chayiv. That was the machlekes in Amafkid. And Rava, after the whole machlekes, Rava says that the halacha is the Shomer Shamas L'Shomer is chayiv. So now the Gemara is going to ask, this Mishnah, we just said that we're forced to learn that our Mishnah here, and it's going to remain the case, that our Mishnah here is talking about a case of Shomer Shamas L'Shomer. Because to say that a Baal Behema gave it to Raya, Tanina Chadazimna. We learned it once, earlier in the Masechta, that if you gave it to Shemachin or Shemasacher, right, that they take your place. So our Mishnah Hakones is a case of Shomer Shamas L'Shomer. We're talking about a three-person case, a Baal Behema, a Shomer, and then a Raya. And what did our Mishnah say? That if the Shomer gives it to the Raya, Nichnas Haraya Tachtav. It seems to be that our Mishnah is taking the opinion that Shomer Shamas L'Shomer is going to be patur. So Frek the Gemara, this is where we're holding by the word Lema. Should we now suggest that this Mishnah is a tiyufta, is a big upgrade, is a big kasha on Rava, the Amar Rava, because Rava paskin that Shomer Shamasar L'Shomer chayiv Rava said that the din is that one shomer give it to another shomer is going to be chayiv. This Mishnah seems to be clearly saying that shomer, so maslo shomer is going to be potter. So it's a tiyufta on Rava. It's a big cash on Rava. So I'm the Gemara. No, Rava is going to be able to defend himself. Amar lach Rava. Rava will answer to you as follows. My misari l'raya. What does it mean in our Mishnah that you gave it over to the raya that shomer number one gave it to shomer number two? It says dafka the word raya. He gave it over to a shepherd. We're talking about liber zile. He gave it over to his talmud. In other words, this guy is a shepherd and he has student shepherds, workers that work for him, or either there's students or they're like a next level, lower level employee, but they're under his jurisdiction and they work for him, and he gave it over to them to watch. So I come to like this company that is they watch thousands of animals. It's not just one raya, there's the master raya, and he has a lot of rayas who work under him. And we're talking about that raya number one gave it to raya number two, and that's why you're going to be potter. Why? The Gemara continues. The urche de raya lemimser lebrazile. It's the steger. It's common for a raya to give it. And in that case, the two reasons that you taina in a mafkir, why shemesh lamaslo shemesh chayiv, because you say ein utzayni shebiteni biadachir or atlay mehamnes lebishvua, this guy's not going to be trusted. You can't claim it in this case. I'll give you an example. In a mafkir, it says that when you give somebody something to watch, and he gave it to his wife to watch, or his older sons, you can't say, "Oh, you gave it to somebody else." When I ask somebody to watch it, I know automatically his wife might watch it. He's not going to be home every single second. His older son, his older daughter, as long as they're not ktanim, they might watch it, and it's included in the deal. So same thing is if you give it to a raya, when you give it to a raya, it's included in the deal. So Rabbi is going to defend himself, and Rabbi maintains shaymer so much shaymer in a regular case, you had no business giving it to another person. You're chayiv. Rabbi maintains that. And this Mishnah is the case of Shemer Shamas L'Shemer, and this Mishnah says that Nichnas Raya Tachta, which means that the first guy's pater. We're talking about that a Raya gave it Lebarzile to someone is in one of his Talmidim, one of his people under him. So that's one version of how this Gemara went down. That Gemara established that this Mishnah is talking about Shemer Shamas L'Shemer. Then what right away happened in the base medrash was somebody said, "Oh, we have a big question on Rava," and we defended Rava. That was one version. The other version is that we actually lechatchila tried using this Mishnah as a support for Rava, and then we said, "Hey, it's not a support. It's not a question, but we removed that it's such a support." How could this thing be a support? Because it doesn't say in our Mishnah that masra la'acher nichnas acher tachtav. It says clearly masra la'raya nichnas acher tachtav nichnas raya tachtav. So it actually seems to imply that we're specifically talking about a case where you're dealing with like a professional shepherd, where it's normal for him to have a barzile who works for him. So when the Gemara established that what's this Mishnah kind is talking about, we must be talking about Shemer Shmasol Shemer, the version of what happened in the base medrash was somebody said, "Oh, this Mishnah is such a good raya that Rav is right, Shemer Shmasol Shemer Chayev." Because why did the Mishnah choose the language of Masar L'Raya that then you're potter? Because had it been Masar L'Aka, you would have been Chayev. It's a Messiah. It's a raya that Rav is right. The Shemer Shmasol Shemer is usually chayiv, and our Mishnah only said nichnas haraya taktav dafka, the case of a raya. So we have a proof. So the Gemara said, "Wow, this is an amazing proof for Rava." And then the base medrash said, "No, it's lav dafka a proof, because you could always say that really the Mishnah holds masra l'raya nichnas raya taktav is your pater, and even masra l'aka you're going to be pater. In other words, maybe our Mishnah holds Shemer Shmasol Shemer always pater. You're going to say the diuk that a chapta and raya, the Mishnah was urchi de milsenakat. We know a lot of times that even in the Torah, it will just do the steger, the usual case. It says that kigachish share. Not only for share gores another animal. Why did it say share? The derech is a share. Or a lot of cases we do kilshaim and adam or urchi de milsa. So that's what the Mishnah said. Raya is ois raya. But the way this went down, it wasn't that it was a kasha and Rava and Rava defended himself. It was actually a immediately viewed as a support for Rava. And then the Gemara said it's lav dafka support, but Rava still maintains that Shemer Shmasol Shemer is chayiv, and this Mishnah either works beautifully with him or at least does not work against him.
Why does that have to be particular? It can just be someone, a regular guy who's a shemer,
Yeah.
who's giving it now, which is how I told her originally, giving it now to a raya, which is a professional, and he thinks it's an upgrade. I don't know how to watch cows. If you trust me with it as a shemer, with this shemer,
No, because over there, I was not expecting you to do that. It's you violated my. The upgrade doesn't work. But the original machlokes of Shemer Shmasol Shemer has even the opinion. What's if he gave the Shemer Chinam and he hires a Shemer Sachar? Has exactly something similar. And the opinion, the Amayra, it's Rabbi Yochanan and Rav, I think. So these are two big Amayraim who have the original argument. The reason why we're quoting Rav is because he's the one who said halacha is chayev. But the original machlokes is, I think, Rav and Rav Yochanan and the Mafkid. And whichever one, and I don't remember by heart which one said which, but he says, even if it's a case, the one who holds that you're chayiv says, even if a shomer chinam upgraded the shmir and gave it the shomer sach, you're still going to be chayiv, because the guy is still going to tie the einer tzayni sheviteri me'adacher, or he can still tie that atlay mehamnes lebeshua. So, but a case when you give it to a raya and you know that he has people working in the store with him, not store, but you know what I mean. So then, yeah, that's obvious. It's like the case in the mafkid that if you give it to a husband, you know his wife is sometimes going to be watching it. You're forced to assume that. You need to assume that. So now let's see it inside. Zakti Gemara. We're holding on the third wide line. Sorry, on the first wide line. Ikadamri, there's another version. The Gemara said, "Mediktani Masar l'Raya," from the fact that the Mishnah said you gave it over to Raya. V'loi Katani, it doesn't say Masar l'Achad, you gave it over to just some other random person. Shma Mina is a Raya from here. Ma'ir Masar l'Raya. That what's the case of Masar l'Raya? Masar l'Raya l'Brazile. They were talking about that Raya gave it to his that Raya gave it over to one of the people who work for him, to his Brazile, to his Talmud. The urchi, and the reason why you're potter in that case is the urchi, the raya levim sul Brazile, because by the case of a raya, it's taka the shteiga that you give it to Brazile, and the person knows to expect that. Aval acher, but to give it to somebody else, loi is not the shteiga, and you're not going to be that nichnas hashemer, the acher tachtov. You're not going to say that. So it's a raya to Rava. So the Gemara said, the Gemara makes that deal. And then the Gemara says, "So later Rava should this diuk, the fact that the Mishnah says Masar l'Raya, should it be a support for Rava?" Rava says Shemesh Masar Shemer Yichayev, that Shemesh Masar Shemer you're going to be Chayev. So the diuk in this Mishnah works beautifully with Rava. It actually seems to support Rava. Zakti Gemara Amri Loi, it's lav dafka Raya Dilma Urcha de Milsa Tani. Maybe the Mishnah just said Raya because it was copying on Urcha de Milsa. And or maybe the Mishnah truly maintains that even if you give it to Acher, you'll also be pater. In other words, maybe our Mishnah holds Shemesh Masal Shem, you're always pater. You can't bring a raya from here, but you can't bring a kasha from here either. So Rava walks away, at least safe, or he walks away that this Mishnah goes very, very good with him. So that takes care of that. Now we're going to go into a completely new sugya, which is called the sugya of Shemer Veda. So just to give you a little heads up, this sugya goes for a complete block. It starts over here in the bottom of Nun Vav Amud Beis where we're holding, by Itmar. The whole Nun Zayin Amud Aleph is going to be on this sugya, and the whole Nun Zayin Amud Beis, almost till the bottom of Nun Zayin Amud Beis. So it's a very big sugya of Shemer Veda. Now, one of the biggest questions you may have is, how does the sugya even come in over here? Shemer Veda is if somebody finds an Aveda, so Mina Torah, you're not allowed to be Mailamai. If you see an Aveda, you're not allowed to ignore it. You're mechuyev to pick it up. And you have to watch it, and you have to take good care of it, and you have to try to find the owner. So mitzvah, Shavas Aveda. And while you do it, by default, you became a Shemer right now. And we want to know what's the status of this Shemer Aveda, what type of Shemer he is. And we're going to have a big machlekes, and we're going to keep on trying to bring proofs from different Mishnayos and Brises to support one opinion or the other. The question is, how does this really land in Perek Hakones? It doesn't seem to be its place. It should be maybe should be more like Maseches Bava Metzia kind of thing. Or like an Elam Metzias even. So some Mepharshim say that knowing the status of the Shemer Veda will affect what his responsibility is. If let's say you're watching an animal and then it left and it went and caused damage, so it lends itself to the dinim of our parak too, because knowing what the status of a Shemer Veda will be, what level of shmira he's meant to provide, and if he didn't provide that level, we're going to hold him responsible, not hold him responsible. If let's say this animal went out and caused damage, that's I think the best answer out there. Otherwise, there's no easy explanation of how this sugya just comes here. But nevertheless, this is where the Gemara put it. I'm sure there's maybe something deeper that we don't understand, but it's a beautiful new sugya that we're going to start tonight, and we'll try to get to as much of it as possible. So we have to make a quick hakdama. We know that there's four shemer: shemer chinam, shemer sachar, seicher, and shayil. We're not going to talk about the seicher and the shayil today. We're going to talk about a shemer chinam and a shemer sachar. Shemer chinam is somebody watches for free. He's doing you a favor. Shemer sachar is you're paying the guy to watch it for you. The guy who's watching it for free, we don't hold him as responsible. He's doing you a favor. He's not allowed to do a pshia. He can't be negligent. He can't be careless. If he does, we hold him responsible. But if there's gneva v'aveda, which is a level up, got lost or got stolen, he's pater. If it's an aynis, some hurricane, some crazy aynis, armed robbery, then for sure he's going to be pater. Shomer Sachar, he's paid. So because he's being paid, he's meant to do a better shmira because he has a bigger achrayus. This is a paid job. You can't just, I'm doing you a favor. So you're supposed to actively watch this thing. So of course, if you do a pshia, you're going to be chayiv. Even one level up, Gneva Vaveda, Shomer Sachar is also going to be chayiv. Aynus, everyone's patur. Aynus, everybody's patur. So the main difference between the Shomer Chinam and Shomer Sachar is Gneva Vaveda. That pshia, everybody's chayiv. Aynus, everybody's patur. So pshia is down the worst, the lowest. What? Shayos chayiv. Yeah, a seicher will be patur. Shayos chayiv on everything besides for a case of olive imai or if mesa machmas malacha. Shayos is responsible on everything because he's borrowing it for free. He's not even renting it, and he's making use of it, and he gets like his. So he's responsible for every case. So, but today's focus is not the shayl. The main thing is that everybody has to know very clearly that there's a shemer chinam, shemer sachar. One's free, one's paid. One has a bigger responsibility because he's paid. One is less because he's a shemer chinam. Practically, what's the difference? Pshia, they'll both be chayer. That's the lowest level. Oynes, they'll both be pater. It's the middle case, Gneva Vaveda, where if you're a shemer chinam, you're pater, and if you're a shemer sachar, you're going to be chayer. The question is right now, if I find an Aveda, and right now I'm a Shemer Aveda, I'm watching it, what is my status? Do I have a din like a Shemer Chinam, or do I have a din like a Shemer Sachar? So, there's a machlekes about it in today's Gemara. But the first thing is, before you look in today's Gemara, what would you say? Just without thinking too deep. The guy's watching Aveda, Shemer Chinam, Shemer Sachar? Shemer Chinam, why? He's not getting paid. Shemer Sachar means he's getting paid. This guy's not getting paid. Yeah, fine. So they're going to start looking deep. So the Shemer Chinam is like the default way to look at it. If you found in a video you're watching it, this is all chinam. This is you're doing the guy a favor. It seems like, right? But there's going to be machlekes. So let's see it inside. Itmar always means that we're about to learn a machlekes of Amirayim. So Itmar, we learned the machlekes of Amirayim. Shomer Aveda, if somebody found an Aveda, now he has to watch it. Rabbi Amar, Rabbi holds kashem rechinam dami. He gets the din like kashem rechinam. Rabbi Yosef Amar, Rabbi Yosef says kashem sachar dami. He's going to have a din like kashem sachar. And they're each going to say their reasons. Rabbi Amar Rabbi is going to say kashem rechinam dami. He's like kashem rechinam. My hana kamati late. What kind of hana do you have? You have no hana from this. You're not getting paid. There's no benefit. This is not a paid job. You're kashem rechinam. Clearly, you're kashem rechinam. That's what you are. Rabbi Yosef Amar, Rabbi Yosef says kashem sachar dami. He's the one who needs to give us a little more reasoning. You're like kashem sachar. So the Gemara is going to say two reasons why he's like kashem sachar. Here comes the first one. Behahi hana. With this hana. That he does not have to give bread to a poor person. Because the halacha is that ha'isik b'mitzvah patur b'na mitzvah. So if let's say I found your animal and I'm right now in my backyard and I'm milking it or I'm combing it or taking care of it, and now a poor man knocks on my door and asks me for bread, I'm patur from giving him bread because I'm being ha'isik in the mitzvah of Shabbos Aveda. So in that case, you're going to fardin that you didn't have to give the bread. So you're Shemer Sachar. There's a little bit of benefit over here. That is what? Listen, a person knocks on your door, you're not allowed to ignore them, right? So here you're allowed to. So it's a benefit. You save money, save $1. That's one opinion. The next opinion is Ika de Mefarshi Hachi. There are those who explain it like this. That Rav Yosef, Amar Rav Yosef says kashem sachar like kashem sachar. Kiv under rachamana shabdi bal karchei, because the Torah, right? I think the word is subjugated you. I think is that the word, right? Because the Torah subjugated you, the Torah forced you to watch it. You don't have an option to watch this. The Hashem tells you need to pick up this aved and you need to watch it. Hilkach kashem sachar dami. You like kashem sachar. In other words, why is the shemer sachar held more responsible? Because you're paid, because you need to do this. You accepted this as a job. You have a higher level of responsibility. It's not like you're doing me a favor, that, you're Shemer Chinam, do me a favor, I'm not going to hold you so responsible. Shemer Sachar, you're getting paid. You're getting paid. Man up, do this a little better. If you're Shemer Sachar, you didn't have an option. It's not like, you're being a nice guy, you're returning an Aveda. You don't have an option. Hashem gives you the mitzvah. Hashem forces you to pick up this Aveda and watch it. So Hashem tells you to watch it. First, you got to do a good job. Of course, you have to do the level of Shemir like a Shemer Sachar. And if it gets lost or stolen, you can't say, sorry, you got lost or stolen, like the Shemer Chinam can say that. Excuse me, what do you mean you got lost or stolen? You have a mitzvah to watch this thing. You're commanded by Hashem. You have no way out. And it wasn't your choice. So therefore, even though he's not getting paid, the logic of why Shemer Sachar is more responsible applies to Shemer Aveda as well. And he's going to be chayiv as well. So this is the machlekes of Rabbi and Rav Yosef. Rabbi says Shemer Chinam. Rav Yosef says Shemer Sachar. And now there's going to be 7 different mishnayos or brises, and the Gemara brings down a siman. Hichzira is 1, La'olam is 2, Hashev is 3, Chiyah is 4, Amrit is 5, Nishbar is 6, and Seicher is 7. I hope I'm reading that word right. I'm trying to remember the 7th one now. There's 7 Brises and Mishnahs where each one of these Amirayim, Rabbi and Rizab are Amirayim, and each one of them are going to bring down a Mishnah, and they're going to use this Mishnah to prove that the Shemer Aveda is either, let's say, like the Shemer China. So it's a kasha on the other opinion, or the opposite way. It's going to go both ways. So let's remember this machlekes of Rabbi and Rabbi Yosef. Rabbi says Shemer Chinam, Rabbi Yosef says Shemer Sachar. And here comes the first question of Eisvei Rabbi Yosef l'Rabba. Rabbi Yosef is going to ask a question on Rabbi. We're going to find the brisa about Hashavas Aveda, and from this brisa we're going to bring a proof to one of the ways, as you're going to see. So Eisvei Rabbi Yosef l'Rabba, Rabbi and Yosef have this argument, and then Rabbi Yosef brings down a brisa to ask a question on Rabbi. Now this brisa is talking about somebody found an Aveda. And the brisa, when you look at it at first, there's something wrong with this brisa. It's a short brisa. There's a ratio and a sefer. There's 2 cases. There's something immediately wrong with the brisa that doesn't sit well. So it requires interpretation. So what the Gemara is going to initially do is going to say, if you look at this brisa, something's not well. It requires a little bit of interpretation. It must be, the Gemara is going to interpret it one way, that this is what the brisa means. And from there, it's going to bring a proof to our Shemer Aveda story. It's going to be a very strong kasha. What the answer will be is, you're right, this brisa is a little bit problematic. You can't learn it as is. I don't have to interpret it your way. I have my own way how to learn it, and it will work well with me. That will be the defense. So that's what we're about to learn. So it says in the brisa as follows. The ratio of the brisa says, if I found your wallet or whatever it is, I found something that belongs to you, and I put it back to the place that you're going to see it. Like I put it right in front of your house. You know, I put it by your steps, by your porch, by your side. I put it by a place that I know that you're going to come in and out. You're going to see it. I just put it there. So then the din is, I no longer need to take care of it. In other words, it's considered returned. Because usually you're mechayev to be metapel in aveda. You have to watch it, you have to take care of it, you have to air it out, feed it, whatever it is, whatever the aveda is. Here the brisa says if I put it back in a place that I know you're going to bump into it, in other words, it's considered returned. Then the brisa says, however, if it got lost or stolen, I will be responsible. That's the ratio, that's the sefer. Now something's off. The ratio just said if I put it back there, comes the sefer and says that if it got lost or stolen, it'll be chayav. So what shot? So what's the case of nignav avda? I must interpret as follows: lav nignav. It must mean to say that nignav mi beisai v'avda mi beisai. So we're talking about it, that it got lost or stolen from your house, not from the makom shirena. Because we just said that exir l'makom shirena ain't a chayv l'tapel. So the sefer is not a continuation to the first case that exir l'makom shirena, because exir l'makom shirena it's returned. Now this brisa continues and says, by the way, nignavai avda, you're going to be chayiv. What must it be talking about? That it was nignavai avda from when you were watching it originally in your house. You see right here, gneva v'aveda of an aveda, you're going to be chayiv. So I have a proof that a shemer aveda is a thing like a shemer sachar. So this is a very good question that Rav Yosef asked on Rabbi. Rabbi said you have a din like a shemer chinam. This brisa is basically saying, and I'm putting in the word basically because the way we're forced to learn this brisa is basically saying that a shemer, that if it's nignavai avda, you're going to be chayiv. So you see, you have a din like a shemer sachar. So I'm with the Gemara loy. No, we're not talking about that it was nignavai avda mi beisai. It's not correct. You decided to learn that way. It's not true. We're talking about mimakim shichzira. The safe of this brisa, and it would actually make more sense to think so. The safe of the brisa is that it got stolen from where you returned it. There's a continuation of the case. But then you have a problem, right? The Reisha said you returned it. Now the Sefer says you're chayav. No, I have an explanation how to learn this brisa. Hold on, I'll explain it to you. But this Sefer is absolutely a continuation to the Reisha, and it's talking about that it was nignavai avda, not from your house. So don't bring me no proof if I'm a shemer chinam or shemer sachar. It's nignavai avda mimakim shirena. The Reisha seem to say that you're considered done, and the Sefer says you're chayav. This is the explanation. It said in the Reisha, whether you're going to be potter in that case, that if it was put mimakim shirena, you're good to go. So I'm relaying, explain to him as follows. In the Seifa, we're talking about so you put it there in a place where the guy will see it when he comes and goes in the afternoon when the guy's at work. So in the morning, if you put it there when you know he's going out to Shachris or going out to get his coffee or heading out to work, you know he's going to see it. It's a great time to put it there, 7:30 a.m. near his house, 8 a.m. in a normal hour. You put it there, it's like 1 p.m. in the middle of the day. You know he's in Manhattan, wherever he is. He's out on the farm. He's not coming back later. In that case, you're going to be responsible. And that the Seif was talking about Sarayim, and the Reisha was talking about in a good time, meaning either maybe morning or evening, whichever one. V'tarti katani, and this Bryce has two dinim. There's the Reisha and the Seifa. There's two dinim. V'hachi katani. This is how you're meant to learn the Brysa. The Brysa actually is a beautiful Brysa. It makes more sense now. It's one long story. The difference is that the Reisha is talking about Shachris and the Seifa is talking about Sarayim. It's the only words missing from the Brysa. Hachi katani. This is how you're supposed to learn this Brysa. If you put it there in the morning, in a place where the guy will see it, and in the morning it's shchiach, it's usual, it's common for people to go in and out of their house, and chazila, and they're going to see it. So then in that case, you're not going to be chayav because you put it there at a time that the guy's going to be coming and going, and you know that he's going to encounter it and see it. However, the Seifa continues that if you put it in the afternoon, even if you put it, let's say, near his house, because you put it in the afternoon, it's not common for people to go in and out of their houses. Then and he's not going to see it eventually. I mean, maybe eventually he'll see it, but he's not going to see it right away. So then, in that case, in that case, you're going to be chayev. So remember, we had a siman on the bottom of the last page. We had the Chzira. We had seven, alluding to 7 different brises and mishnayos. We did 1 so far. I hope to do 2 more tonight, and then it seems that we're going to have to stop because we're nearing our hour. But the first one is done.
It's going to be the
Yeah.
all the Amazon package they get stolen.
Yeah.
This is exactly how it looks.
I mean, if you were trying to help someone.
These days, it's
Hold it out, you're chayav.
well. These days, it's not shchiach la'al v'nafik. It's shchiach that it's going to be stolen.
Yeah.
It's really bad to leave something on a porch. So it's not a good. It's
The real, I think it's when I went through this, it
Yeah.
makes a lot of sense compared to
yeah, but you don't even have to go to the olden days. If you live out of New York City, and you go to a normal city, you see Amazon packages and people selling porches all the time. It's a davar pashut. So if I found your package, let's say down the street, and I see, oh, it's yours, I'll go put it in front of your door. I don't have to ring your bell. I don't have to tell you it's normal. You put it there. It's good. If you know the guy's out of town, let's say, you know that every winter this guy spends winter in Florida. You know this guy in the winter is back up north. So you don't put it in front of his door because it's not shchiach v'nafik. This would absolutely apply. But here in New York, yes, the shchiach is unfortunately that it's going to be stolen, so it's not good to leave it on the porch. So we tried having a proof from this Mishnah that Hashem Raveda is chayv and game Aveda, and we took off the proof. Now we're going to go to the next Esvei. This Esvei is again Rav Yosef asking to Rabbi. Rav Yosef who holds that you're like a Shemer Sachar, he's challenging Rabbi who said like you're a Shemer Chinam. Esvei, it's also a brisa about a mitzvah, of course. So the brisa says that La'olam hu chayiv achit zrenel l'shusay. That you're always, La'ila means you're always going to be chayiv for the Aveda. If you're a Maitzi Aveda and you have Aveda in your possession, you're always chayiv until you properly return it to the owner's possession. Zak the Gemara, my La'ilam. What does this price seem to imply by La'ilam? Lav doesn't it mean afilu beisai, that even if it got stolen from your house, that you're always going to be chayiv. Always chayiv seems to say that even if it will be stolen or lost, you're going to be chayiv. And if that's the case, Shema Mina, we have a raya from here. That you're like a Shemer Sachar, because we said that you're chayiv on Gneva Vaveda. Does La'ila means that even if it's stolen from your house. So Amar Lei, so Rabbi answers to Rav Yosef, and in that brisa, the reason why I said that you're always chayiv, it's a very interesting answer. I'll read it inside and then I'll explain. Amar Lei, he tells him, my din Allah, I agree with you, B'balei Chayim, that we're talking about animals. They keep on the nakti who nigra baraisa because they already have this habit to run away. But you need a better shmira. So basically, Rabbi tells Rav Yosef that brayso la'olam you're chayiv, that you're to watch it, and la'olam seems to imply you're always chayiv, means even if it's stolen from your house. So you see everything like a shemer sacher. We demand a very high level of responsibility from you. What? No. Not mamash. Einus is einus, but Lailam making even if it's something that you could have prevented. Gneva Veda is considered that you could have prevented if you would have given a better shmira and not just done a shmira pchusa, a little bit of a shmira mula would have not got stolen. So Lailam Yechayev. So Rabbi says, yeah, that price is talking about animals. And by animals, I agree with you that you must provide a shmira mu'ula. Why? Because what's the story with this animal? It was a lost animal. How did the animal get lost? it means that this animal is the type to run away. So when you find the animal that you know is the type to run away, you can't go do a shmir pchusa because it's going to break out and run away again. This animal has a steiger that it goes out, but not, what does it? The Gemara say? Nagri, baraisa means it goes out it runs out into the outside. So you're forced to give it a shmir ma'ula, and if you don't give it a shmir ma'ula, you're a pesheya. You're being negligent because you know that this animal already has the steiger to always run away. So what? You're mechayiv to it's a mitzvah in the Torah. You got to chain it up, build something around it. You got to hire someone. It's your job. It's your mitzvah. It's your responsibility. So if you don't provide it with the shmira ma'ula, it's not that if you don't provide it with this extra special shmira that it shouldn't be able to get lost or stolen, you're actually a pesheya. So let me just firize. So the reason why you're chayiv is not because you have a din like a shemer sakar, the gneva v'avedas chayiv. It could be that a shemer veda is a din like a shemer chinam. But the reason why you're chayiv is because you're a pesheya in this case. Everybody agrees that pesheya. So again, the reason why you're chayiv is not because you're a shemer sakar, because alright, we said you're chayiv even if it's stolen. In this case, you're chayiv if it gets lost or stolen. If you didn't give it an extra level, you had to give it a higher level of protection. If you don't, you're considered a pesheya. And shemer chinam is also chayiv amshiyah. So I maintain. Rabbi's Rabbi will defend himself. Say, I maintain that a shemer chinam has a din like a shemer veda has a din like a shemer chinam. But by a bal chayim, I agree that when you find it by bal chayim, you must lock it up really well. And if it's somehow got lost or stolen, you're a pesheya and you're chayiv. Not because you're like a shemer sakar. Saying gneva and aveda, right? Okay, excellent. So the Mefarshim speak about that. So some of the Mefarshim, I believe, learn that we're talking about that it was gneva from running away. In other words, gneva wasn't that robbers broke into your house. This animal has a habit. This animal has a habit that it tries to get away. That's what it did to its owner, right? Tries to get away, so then right away it got stolen. But it's not stolen because it wasn't guarded well. But otherwise, you have a good question because in this case, aveda and gneva are different. Because the whole thing is the aveda over here, it's used to being an aveda. Let's try to get in.
This finder has to be more responsible than the owner.
Let's get in one more ace and then we'll stop for today. What?
This owner has to be more responsible. This shemer has to be more responsible than the owner himself.
Well, the owner himself now knows, hey, my animal's the type of animal to run away. If I want to keep this animal, I got to lock it up extra special.
The owner couldn't watch it.
Well, the owner maybe didn't know, but now we know that this animal's the runner type. There's going to be more times. There's going to be more times later in Perek Hakones where this svara comes to play again. We're going to say, because you know that this is the steiger for this animal, it's expected of you to give it a better protection right now. This idea, this logic, this responsibility comes up in Hakones, I think at least twice more on the next block.
Will apply to all Balakayim when it comes to Shemer,
No, it's only about Chaim in this case because you know that it's the type to run away. If I ask you, hey, please watch my animal, fine. So you watch my animal, and I'm a shemer chinam, I give it a shemer pchusa, ran away. I don't know the animal's the type to run away. I did the standard thing. But here you found this animal, so you know it's an animal that runs away. So you had to give it a shmer me'ilah. So if you didn't, you're automatically a pesheya. So that's where you're chayiv in the name of Aveda in this case. Not because you're like a shemer sacher, because you're a pesheya. Let's do one more Esri for tonight. Esri Rabbi. Now it's going the other way. Now it's the Esri Rabbi of Yosef. Rabbi is going to ask for Yosef. Yosef said you have a din of a shemer chinam. Rabbi is going to want to prove to you now that you have a din like a shemer sacher. So the pasuk that says that you need to return the Aveda says like this: Hashev. Says that if you find an Aveda, you're not allowed to ignore it, right? And then the pasuk says, Hashiv teshivim lachicha. Returning, you must return a double lashon. Hashiv teshivim lachicha, you must return it to your brother. So we're going to quote a brisa which is quoting the pasuk, right? So it says in the brisa says that it says in the pasuk, Hashiv, you need to return it. So from the fact that it just says Hashiv once, ainly Ella bebeisei, I would only know that you can return it to your friend's house. Like you got to return it properly. You got to go put it in his house. However, that I'm allowed to go return it, not to his house, but I could put it even in his garden or even in his churba. Churba is like some little shack you have outside your house, right? Some people still have their sukkah in front of their house. They have like this little churba in front of their house. So, that you're allowed to go to return it to your friend's gina or churba, I wouldn't know it from the word hashiv. Hashiv, I would think you have to go to the house. And how do I know that you're also allowed to return it to his gina or his churba? What?
A shed.
Yeah, like a little shed. So Talmud Leimer, it says in the pasuk teshivim, which means more hashavos, mikol makom, which means any type of hashava is going to work. Hashiv, where you would think, if it only said Hashiv, got to put it in the guy's house properly, because it says Hashiv Teshivim, so we learn in Kol Makim that it will work, even if you put it in his Gina, even if you put it in his Churba. So this is a very clear brisa. This brisa is quoting the Pasuk, and from Hashiv Teshivim, you're allowed to do L'ginas L'chabasi. Now, we're going to expound on this to bring a proof here. Zak there, my L'ginas L'chabasi, what type of Gina and Churba are we talking about that this brisa allows you to return it there? If we're talking about that this guy's Gina is very, very well guarded, it's a proper garden, it's not like open to the street. This is a shed that's properly locked down. It actually has a gate, it actually has locks, it actually has a door, and that's what the Bryce is teaching us, that the pasuk is coming to be marba. So then it can't be Hainu Beisai. If it's a Gina Mishtamares or Chabasi Mishtamares, that's exactly like returning it to Beisai. I don't need the pasuk of Hashiv Teshivim to be marba that Gina and that Churba, because that's basically like returning it to the guy's house, a very well protected facility. So El Pshita, rather obvious, and must say, what does this Bryce mean? That the Torah is teaching us with extra teshivim, that you're allowed to do a lower level. You're allowed to do it l'ginasoi she'enim mishtameres, or l'chibasoi she'enim mishtameres. You're allowed to return it to a gina or a churba that's not that well protected. In other words, it's a gina or a churba that a ruach mitzuya won't blow down the gates around it, but a ruach she'enim mitzuya will. It's a shmir of chusa. And you see clearly that Hashiv Teshivim, you're allowed to have a shmir of chusa. So what does that mean? That Hashem Rabbi does allowed to do shmir of chusa. Now let's translate that. Hashem Rabbi does a din of Hashem Rechinam, because the shmir of chusa is sufficient. El Pshita, rather, it's obvious. We must say that the brisa means that the pasuk means, right? L'ginasoi she'eina mishtameres, l'chabasoi she'eina mishtameres. Shma mina. So from here, that you see the shmir of chusa is sufficient. We have a proof, Kishem Rechinam Dami, that Hashem Rabbi does a din like Hashem Rechinam. So here was a good question that Rabbi Yosef asks on. That Rabbi asks on Rabbi Yosef, Amarlei, so Rabbi Yosef is going to defend himself, and Rabbi Yosef tells Rabbi, La'olam, no, that's incorrect. La'olam, when we said that Hashiv Teshivim, that would mean Gina Churba, La'olam, in Emerson, the way you're supposed to learn it is that you put it back L'Gina Sa'im Mishlameres. Of course, you need to do Shmira Ba'ula, and you have it done like a Shemer Sachar, and you can't put it in a Gina Shein Mishlameres. Has to be Gina Sa'im Mishlameres. Ulu Churba Sa'im Mishlameres. The kakashalach that you asked, Hainu Beisai, if it's a Gina Mishtamaris and a Churba Mishtamaris, that's the same case of Beisai. You're right. Protection-wise, it's the same case of Beisai. They're both very well guarded facilities. But there's another Chiddush here that I'm allowed to return it to your Gina and to your Churban. That's the Chiddush. What's the Chiddush? It's like this. Hakamaswan, this is what he's coming to teach us. The Loi Be'inan Das Bailam. That when I return an Aveda to you, I don't need to notify you. I don't need to make sure that you realize that I returned it to you. Everyone else, when I return something to you, I need to make sure you know. If I'm a Shemer Chinam, I'm going to tell you a lot of people, Rashi lists them. If I'm a Shemer Chinam, if I'm a Shemer Sachar, if I'm a Seicher, if I'm a Shoyel, if I'm a Ganev, if I'm a Gazlan, anytime that I have something that belongs to you, when I return it to you, it's only called returned if I have Das Bailam. Like give it to you, you have to acknowledge that you got it. Maybe you could do it electronically now with a text, picture, that's fine, it's Das Bailam. But when it comes to Naveda, I'm able to return it without Das Bailam. I can just throw it into your property or put it in Makom Shirena, right? You just put it there in your yaitza. It's considered return. Well, obviously, okay, I don't want to get into that, but you have to put it in your Beisai or Ginasei Mishtamares or Chabasei Mishtamares, and I don't need to make sure that you know. I could just leave it there for you as long as it's in a good place and it's not going to be lost or stolen. And I don't need to let you know. And when the Bryce is saying Hashev is Beisai, Teshivim is Gina and Churba, it doesn't mean that you could do a lower level of Shmira. It just means that you don't need Das Bailim. And where do we see that clearly? Hakamash one, Delay Bina Das Bailim, Uchid Rabbi Elazar, like Rabbi Elazar taught us straight up. The Amar Rabbi Elazar says, Hakoil, everybody again, the Arba Shaimrim and the Ganev and the Gazla and Shrichim Das Bailim. You don't need Das Bailim. The Torah was marba a lot of kind of returnings. What did the Torah mean? They're saying the Shivim, you could even return it in a way where there's no Das Bailim. That's what Rabbi Elazar says straight up. And now it's Rabbi Yosef who's defending himself here. He's saying this din of Rabbi Elazar is what our brisa means. When our brisa said Hashiv Teshivim to be marba Gina Churba, we're talking about Gina Mishtameres and Churba Shtameres. And I maintain my opinion that you are a Shemer Sachar. You have to provide a Shmir Ma'ula. And all the brisa was teaching you is that you don't need to have Das Bailim. So from the 7 brises and missions that are going to be brought down in the sugya of Shemer Aveda, we did the first 3. 2 questions from the We did the first two questions from, who was it, from Rabbi Yosef to Rabbi asked two questions, so the first two brises, both about an Aveda, of course, and now we had the third brise here where the question goes the other way, and we're middle of the Sugya of Shem Aveda, and maybe one class is ahead of where we are right now. There's 5 classes in the grade, but 4 of the classes are not. So you're on the Shiur is branded to be on the same page as your son. Now you're on the same page, and Mitzvah Shem will have another Shiur, and we'll go right there, Mitzvah Shem. Thank you very much again to Rabbi Ari Greenwald and to the family for hosting.
Yes.